Well, welcome back. Dare I call you my friends? Welcome back to A Man in a Sea of Lies. And things are changing rapidly and picking up speed as they move along. And in our politics, over the last couple of days, I continue to, it amazes me what our politicians and the mainstream media continue to sell us. It's quite incredible, uh, in my opinion. So let's start with this airport privatization idea. And Jerry Agar on his show had John Tory Jr. and he's apparently a airline expert and a pilot. I think he's a pilot, an aviation expert anyway. So he's kind of defending that idea of privatizing our large airports. He said that many large hubs in the world run very well and are very successful. But in Canada, I noticed over the decades that any sort of privatization only serves as a way to make work projects. Give political friends. Give them important positions with large income. It always leads to higher costs in Canada. I'm not sure about productivity, but the costs are much higher usually when we privatize things. It's because that's the way our economy is set up. Very few large companies that have the capital and organizational skills to do that sort of thing, right? So this is automatic political corruption in most cases. So positions, all these consultants that get paid, and it's just on and on and on and on now. And these kind of policies, politicians set the tone for short-term profit, and it seems that businesses follow that kind of example, and that leads to seeking, maximizing short-term profit before the ship sinks. So it doesn't seem real, but it is true that political leaders lead the way to the business community. How to behave as far as long and short-term goals. Now, staying with Jerry Agar here, he had Tom Korsky from Blacklocks. And this guy is really good. He calls it like it is, and one of the things that he mentioned during the interview was the problem with our debt and deficits. So consumers are right now over $3.2 trillion in personal debt. The feds are approaching 1.5 trillion in debt, and the provinces also about 1.5 trillion. So that's over $6 trillion. And this is not everything. There's other stuff that's not included here. And it's on the upward trend because of the large deficits everywhere. So this is another example of short-term thinking for profit and for immediate political capital, and that brings us to this high-speed rail, and over $70 billion right now. The estimated cost is for that rail. In my estimation, looking at other projects in Canada, it probably take about 15 to 20 years to complete that project, and the cost is going to easily triple. So we're looking at over $200 billion costs. And they're planning, there's only 7 stations and very few crossings in between. And those few crossings are an important thing because it creates difficulty for landowners that the rail is going to cut through their land, right? Fewer crossings are important for emergency services and other things. So this is not as simple as it seems. And I probably it's gonna take 15 to 20 years to build, and then likely we're gonna have to subsidize this to probably to the tune of I think between $2 and $5 billion per year, because they're planning to run 72 trains every day on this connection. And I don't see people filling up 72 trains per day on this line. It's going to run half empty. And hence the subsidies in the future. The subsidies are probably planned to begin with already anyway. A much better approach to these large projects is incremental progress. So let's electrify it via rail and improve their tracks first before we take a swing in this massive project. Look at the California example, right? But they don't care. The money is gonna come in now, and 20 years from now, who cares, right? Most of these people are gonna be dead, so they don't care about their own kids, it appears. And then brings us back to Vasi Capellos. She had the Stephen McKinnon, liberal House leader in Ottawa, and he defended the monetary policy and the budget that Carney's regime just introduced. And he is such a weasel. Gotta give him that. He's smooth talker. You know, defense budget had to be increased. Although from some sources, I hear they just shuffle the accounting around to make the numbers, inflate the numbers for our defense spending. There are some big projects in planning, true, but they've increased the budget now, and most of these projects haven't even started to be built. So this is like, he was defending this and defending that. They cut here and they cut there. All the cuts that they've done are minuscule comparing to the increases that they've introduced. And the cuts that they've introduced are generally like federal employment, for example. They've been increased so much higher during Trudeau that the cuts introduced now make very little difference. Make things worse, actually, because there's more money being spent anyway. So this is what's developing as a Canadian speciality. Maybe European Union is on par with this kind of thing, but it's plain political corruption right in front of our eyes in the open. They're not shy about it. They're not hiding it. They have prepared, skillfully prepared answers to tough questions that 1 in 10 reporters will ask them. So these kind of policies are unsustainable for Canadians. And it seems their game plan is to milk every last penny from Canadians before the country collapses into some sort of a political or economic crisis that's going to take us, 20 or 30 years later to recover from. So this is where we stand. And there is opposition, of course, but the media, they're not doing their jobs. Social media are discarded as far as politicians are concerned, because they're unreliable, like the official media who they pay money to are reliable in any way. They aren't. They're odd reporters that ask questions and do tough commentary, but it's for what I've seen and heard, it's 1 in 10, maybe even less. So they're on the well designed, well guided path to ruin this country. And this process is accelerating with Mark Carney. You know, Trudeau was an amateur compared to Carney. Carney is going full speed ahead. So I am sorry, and I feel sorry for us, and I worry about my son's future, and I worry about Canada's future. Apparently, they couldn't care less. Please subscribe. Thanks for watching. So long.